Hey there guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to do a very different video from the videos I usually do, because today I wanted to talk about how I'm teaching myself Italian. Now this is not like an advice video, so I can't really tell you how you can learn a new language. I can just tell you how I do it to maybe inspire you, to show you the way I process language the best, which is very personal. And yeah, I just love learning new languages. I have been a teacher or like a tutor for languages for many years. I have taught English and Latin, and Italian is one of those languages that I always wanted to learn. But I have realized that I'm not good at learning languages in a way that you usually learn it in a context, like at university or in school. For example, in school I tried to learn Spanish. I was rubbish at it. I just don't click well with these kind of language learning things. Also in university I tried to learn Russian, and even though it worked out a little bit better, I still was not good at it at all. And so I wanted to tell you, maybe if you have this New Year's resolution to try to learn a new language, some, tips and tricks how I approach this. Now, what I like about learning languages is understanding the basic layer of the language. So I'm very much interested in grammar, and I'm not a huge fan of learning new vocabulary. So usually what I look for in learning a language is understanding the basic grammatical structure of a language, because in my opinion you can find all the words in a dictionary, but you cannot find grammar in a dictionary in that way. So that is what I focus on, and that's what I'm interested in. But if you are a different kind of language learner, that's totally fine. That's just how it works for me. Now, I have taught myself a lot of English too, because I, as I said, never clicked well with the way I was taught languages in school and university. And so I'm trying to use similar methods now with Italian to see whether I can kind of succeed with that. So let's just get into the kind of things that I do. So obviously the first thing I did was I went on Duolingo and started learning lessons there. And can I just show you? I did this for over 550 days. So yeah, I'm pretty badass, just saying. So that's where I'm at. And yeah, that was just the first step. I went on Duolingo and I checked whether the language I wanted to learn was there. They don't have all the languages, so if you want to learn something a little bit more out there, maybe you won't find it. But then again, they also have fantasy languages, so somebody please explain the concept to me. But they had Italian, so I went on there and I started learning Italian there. Now, what Duolingo does and what it is really good at is giving you very simple practices, but kind of the term is gamification, I think. So they make this like a fun game, and it is really motivating that way, because you can collect points and you can finish levels, and then you level up, and then you can learn like different lessons and stuff like that. And you always have this kind of visual of your progress, which I think is very helpful when you start learning a language. But what Duolingo can't do that well is teaching you the grammar, especially because most languages you can only learn through English. Now, my mother tongue is German and Italian do have similarities, but English doesn't have those similarities, so that when I learn Italian through English, I don't see the similarities because I have this extra step thrown in there. So this is something that has been bothering me a little bit, but it is great if you want to start learning, the first little bit of vocabulary. And what I love about Duolingo, and what I think it does very well, is that it incorporates all the vocabulary into sentences. So from the very beginning, you're starting to learn sentences, but within these sentences you learn the vocabulary and also like very basic grammar, so that you can't explain the grammar, but you can use it, and that is very helpful, I think. So when you learn a new language on Duolingo, you will start off with sentences like, I'm a woman, I'm a girl, you are a boy, stuff like that. And then you will just evolve and evolve. And by now, through Duolingo, I can say pretty damn weird sentences. And sometimes they're even a little bit funny. They also added this new thing called stories. And with these stories, you get like dialogue. And using these kind of stories, I realized what I was missing from these Duolingo exercises in the first place. And that is to see the structure of whole dialogues and a whole like paragraph and stuff like that. Because as it is helpful to see these sentences, you only always have one sentence at a time. They don't connect to each other. And so the next step I wanted to try, and that's what I mainly want to talk about today, is translating books. Now, this is the way I taught myself English. So I think this is a very, very good way if you like, you know, understanding grammar of a language and kind of adding on to your vocabulary in a very kind of unstructured way, basically. And so what I did is I got myself 2 children's books. These are tiny, tiny Italian children's books. They're really, really tiny. This one has even less text. This one just has text like this, whereas the other one has like real pages like this. And so I thought this would be a good place to start. Now, I have already started by translating the back of this, and I wanted to tell you a little bit about how I go about that. Now, you will need a few tools if you're starting translating from a language you don't really speak yet. So obviously you need something that has very, very simple text. So you will start at a very simple level of complexity in your sentences, because obviously you have kind of different sentence structures. You can have like a main clause, and then you can have like relative clause and stuff like that. And the more clauses there are, the more complex the whole structure gets. So starting with something that has a very, very simple structure is very helpful. Then the other thing you definitely need is a grammar card. Now this I got for my birthday last year from my boyfriend. He got this for me for Italian, and this is a whole big ass grammar card where you have a ton of information. And this is kind of like your Bible, because you can always look up like words online, but to understand grammar you need something like this. And so what you need especially is like a part on the tenses of the verbs, and then also things about clauses, basically. So things that connect clauses, what's like a main clause, what's a relative clause, how do they look, and stuff like that. And these are just very, very important things that you need to know, because you can't really look them up. And then you just have to try to understand the basic structure of these sentences. So for example, if you take a sentence, you can at first try to read them out, which is always kind of fun. Let me try this. This might be really bad, so if you speak Italian, I'm sorry. So this one says, così un giorno accade che una fatina si recò dal simpatico omone e gli disse. And now the first thing you want to do when you have this sentence is you want to try to find the verbs, because those are mainly the structural points. So whatever you do, every clause will have a verb. And so the first thing you want to do is go and look for the verbs and underline them in a certain color, stuff like that. And then you want to look up what they mean, and you want to make sure you know what kind of tense they are and all that stuff. So for example, I think that this accade is a verb because it very much looks like a verb to me. And so I would look that up in an online dictionary, then I would know what it means, and then I would look what the tense is. I think from looking at it, this might be, it's actually not that simple. Let me just check. I think this is just simple present when I look at it. And then you just go from there. So when you found your verbs, you know how many kind of clauses you have. Now I can see that this sentence has a ke. Is that how you say it? I think so. And that means that this will probably be like a second clause, because ke, I think, means that. So it starts kind of a new clause there. And so after that, I will look for a new word that looks like it could be a verb and stuff like that. So when you have found all your verbs, you want to make sure that you know what the subject to these verbs is. So then you go in and you look at potential nouns. And so for example, un giorno is definitely a noun and it means a day. So I would think that the first clause, un giorno accade, is basically the noun and the verb. And so I just have to look up accade and I probably know what that bit means. And così is just some kind of these small words to start the sentence basically. And so using this technique, you can break up the sentences into your clauses, then break up the clauses and translate those, and then try to make some kinds of sense in it. And that's how I've been doing it. It doesn't always work out well. You don't always end up with sentences that make sense, because sometimes you just have these kind of, is it called proverbs? Like things that in a literal sense don't make any sense, but you have to know them to understand what they mean. But that's totally fine. It's totally fine if not everything makes sense that you translate, because you will still start to see the structure more and more and more, and it will make more sense to you with every sentence you translate. And then what I also do is, obviously, I write down the translation and I will just put that into the book when I'm done. And so I have the translation in there. But I also do a vocabulary sheet. So I put down all the words that I didn't know and I had to look up. So I have them ready, because usually you will have certain words appear again and again and again when you have a full story. Because obviously, for example, this book is about a unicorn, l'unicorno. So you will probably have the word l'unicorno a lot during this book, because that's obviously what this is about. And it's also about a dreaming unicorn. So you will have words that connect to dreams, dreaming, sleep, stuff like that, all over the story probably. And so writing these down, you won't have to look them up every single time, because you will learn them as you go. So I think that is very, very helpful. So that is what I've been doing so far. So just let me wrap this up a little bit. So what I do for learning a new language. First of all, I looked for some kind of a gamification of the language learning, and I found that on Duolingo. Really enjoy that, stuff like that. Then I went and got myself some text to translate. You don't have to buy books. You can use songs. You can use some kind of text you find on the internet, like, I don't know, like from a newspaper or something like that. Just wherever you find a text in that language will work. Then you will need a grammar sheet, so you can start learning the grammar. And when you start translating your sentences, you want to start with looking for the verbs, then finding the nouns to the verbs, and then structure the rest of the words around that and see where it takes you. And then basically the only rule is just keep going, because as you go, you will get better and better. And I think the next step after this, when I feel really comfortable and I feel like I can, see the structure in the sentences, I would start watching movies with subtitles. So not my subtitles, not German or English subtitles, but with the Italian subtitles. That would be the next step. And again, you can start with text that you're familiar with, but you can also start just with children's movies or something like that. So yeah, that's what I've been doing. So as I said, this is just one way to approach this whole thing, and I wanted to share that. And if you have any advice on how you learn languages well and quickly and stuff like that, I would love to know down below. And yeah, I hope this was in some way helpful. Let me know if you have any interesting New Year's resolution, and I will talk to you soon. Bye!